Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
Welcome to Connecting the Dots, broadcasting directly from the Snarful Solutions Group right here in Sacramento, California. I'm Alex.
And I'm Morgan.
And today is Tuesday, April 7, 2026. We've got a truly wild deep dive lined up for you today.
Yeah, we really do. It's fascinating how much the tech landscape is shifting underneath our feet right now.
It really is. But before we get into the heavy data, let's kick things off with our Morningstar briefing. Just looking out the studio window right now, it is honestly a beautiful morning here in Sacramento.
Oh, absolutely stunning. We're looking at mostly sunny skies, a really perfect 78 degrees, and just this nice light breeze of like 2 to 6 miles per hour.
Super comfortable. Although we do need to point out a pretty stark contrast for any of you tuning in from outside California today.
Right, yeah. If you're commuting across the country, it might be a much rougher morning. There are currently 408 active U.S. weather alerts right now.
Wow, 408.
Yeah, and 183 of those are actually over land. So if you are traveling or just heading out the door in those affected regions, please do yourself a favor and check weather.gov for the latest safety details in your specific area.
Definitely stay safe out there.
Yeah.
Let's pivot over to the financial markets, which started the week on a decidedly sunny note as well. Looking at Monday's close, the Dow Jones jumped up 197 points.
Nice. Closing at 46,669.88.
Exactly. And the S&P 500 also caught a nice updraft, bumping up 24 points to close Monday at 6,611.83.
Though looking at the digital asset side this Tuesday morning, Bitcoin has actually taken a slight dip.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's down 357 points right now, just sort of hovering at $68,502.76.
Got it. Well, let's look closer at our main topic today, because the internal numbers we are seeing paint this really vivid picture of a multi-billion-dollar arms race.
An arms race that is completely contrasting with like this massive human behavioral experiment happening in the workplace.
It's wild. Today's episode is brought to you by Strong Coffee, the premium instant coffee that tastes like a traditional brew, but is packed with 15 grams of protein, MCTs, and adaptogens like ashwagandha. Get clean, sustained energy without the jitters. Use promo code SNARFL for 20% off at strongcoffeecompany.com.
So, to really understand the global picture of technology right now in 2026, we have to look at the physical reality of what Anthropic is doing.
Right. Anthropic, they're the public benefit corporation behind the Claude AI models, right?
Exactly. And they just finalized this massive infrastructure deal with Google and Broadcom that fundamentally alters the scale of computing as we know it.
Altering the scale how? Like, what kind of numbers are we talking about here?
Well, they are securing roughly 3.5 gigawatts of next-generation TPU computing capacity, and that's going to start coming online in 2027.
Okay, we definitely need to put the financial momentum behind this into perspective first, because the revenue growth driving this is what's truly staggering to me.
Oh, for sure. The financial velocity is insane.
Right. According to these internal reports we pulled, Anthropic's run rate revenue has skyrocketed to over $30 billion.
$30 billion. It's hard to even wrap your head around that.
And to be clear for everyone listening, a run rate is just taking their current monthly revenue and extrapolating it out over a full year.
Right. It's a projection.
Exactly. But at the end of 2025, which, was just a few months ago, that run rate was sitting at only $9 billion.
So they have more than tripled their financial velocity in less than half a year.
Yes. And the speed of that leap is almost entirely driven by enterprise adoption. When they announced their Series G fundraising back in February, they had over 500 business customers who are each spending over $1 million annually.
$1 million a year just on AI software.
Right. And today,
that
number has completely doubled. They now have over 1,000 enterprise customers dropping over $1 million a year.
Which perfectly explains this desperate rush for hardware. I mean, the demand from corporate America to integrate Claude into their daily operations is exploding faster than anyone modeled.
Definitely. And Broadcom is right in the middle of this, right?
Oh, absolutely. Broadcom's CEO, Hock Tan, noted that they are already providing 1 gigawatt of compute to Anthropic right now in 2026.
And they're using Google's homegrown tensor processing units for that, the TPUs.
Yeah, exactly. But the demand is surging so fast that Anthropic needs to expand from that 1 gigawatt to 3.5 gigawatts by next year.
And from a purely financial perspective, Broadcom expects to make $42 billion in AI revenue from Anthropic alone by 2027.
42 billion, but let's actually focus on that 3.5 gigawatt figure for a second, because I feel like gigawatts of compute can easily sound like abstract sci-fi jargon.
Oh, totally. I actually need a real-world translation here. We throw the term gigawatt around, but what does that actually mean in terms of physical grid power?
Okay, so 1 gigawatt of electricity is roughly the amount of power it takes to run an entire medium-sized city.
Wait, really? A whole city?
Yeah, or like roughly the total output of a large nuclear reactor. So Anthropic securing 3.5 gigawatts means they are effectively commandeering the electrical equivalent of multiple major cities, and they're dedicating every single volt of that energy entirely to thinking machines.
That is unfathomable. So we are talking about laying thousands of miles of high voltage cables and building these massive industrial cooling systems.
Right, literally pouring concrete on a scale that rivals the construction of the Hoover Dam.
And a massive portion of this new 3.5 gigawatt infrastructure is actually going to be built right here in the United States, which expands on their recent $50 billion commitment to American computing.
Yeah, the domestic investment is huge.
But beyond the sheer physical scale, what fascinates me is the strategy behind whose hardware they are actually buying. Because historically, the entire AI boon has basically been a monopoly, hasn't it?
Oh, completely. For the last several years, the entire industry was completely dependent on just one company, Nvidia.
Right, the graphics processing unit guy.
Exactly. OpenAI, Meta, Anthropic, they all relied heavily on Nvidia's high-performance GPUs.
So if Nvidia had a bad quarter, everyone had a bad quarter.
Pretty much. If Nvidia faced a manufacturing delay, or say a global supply chain disruption limited the availability of those specific chips, the entire development of artificial intelligence globally would just grind to a halt.
Is this multi-platform strategy basically like an airline diversifying its fleet between Boeing and Airbus? So if one manufacturer has a massive delay, the whole airline doesn't get grounded.
Yes. That is exactly what it is. The fundamental goal here is avoiding a single point of failure.
Which makes a lot of sense when you have 1,000 enterprise customers relying on you.
Right. Think about it. If an enterprise customer, say a major hospital network that relies on Claude to process patient data, or a global logistics firm using it to route shipping containers, if they need this technology for critical second-by-second operations, they simply cannot afford for the AI to go down.
They need guarantees.
Exactly. So by expanding away from just Nvidia chips to include Amazon's AWS Trainium chips and Google's custom-built TPUs, Anthropic is ensuring that the everyday tools working professionals rely on won't suddenly crash just due to a single supply chain bottleneck.
It actually makes Claude the only frontier AI model available to customers on all three of the world's largest cloud platforms, right? Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure.
Yeah, they are literally matching specific computing workloads to the physical chips best suited for them. And it's a trend defining the entire sector right now.
Even OpenAI is doing this, right?
Yeah, Anthropic's biggest rival is collaborating with Broadcom on custom silicon, too. And they've committed to using 6 gigawatts of AMD's GPUs.
Wow.
You also have massive independent projects like Terafab, which is this vertically integrated chip manufacturing facility backed by Elon Musk's ventures trying to create more alternatives.
So Nvidia is still the dominant force, obviously, but the market is actively funding credible alternatives to build out supply chain resilience. Well, moving on to our next story. Let's look at what happens when all of that unfathomable city-powering compute actually reaches the desk of the everyday corporate worker.
Oh man, this is where it gets crazy.
Because while the structural engineers at Broadcom and Google are sweating over global supply chains and nuclear-level energy grids, the employees over at Meta have turned AI usage into a literal video game.
The contrast is genuinely jarring. But it raises a really vital question about how corporate America actually measures productivity in the AI era.
Okay, break this down for us, because this leaked data is wild.
So internal sources leaked details about an intranet leaderboard that Meta has set up for its 85,000 employees. And this leaderboard is internally dubbed Claudionomics.
Claudionomics. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up.
No, right? And the explicit purpose of this leaderboard is to track AI token consumption across the entire workforce.
Wait, so employees are actively competing to see who can consume the most AI computing power?
Yes. In a single 30-day period, Meta employees burned through 60 trillion tokens.
Hold on. 60 trillion. For anyone outside the engineering department, what physically is a token in this context? Because 60 trillion of anything sounds incredibly expensive.
It is. A token is the fundamental unit of compute for these models. Think of it as like a piece of a word that the AI processes.
Okay.
So every single time an employee asks an AI a question, or has it read a PDF document, or asks it to generate a block of code, the system burns tokens to process that request.
And crucially, every single token costs real money.
Real money and physical electricity from those gigawatt data centers we just talked about.
But the leaderboard has heavily gamified this expense. It uses these role-playing game titles to get employees hooked on utilizing AI tools.
Oh, the titles are the best part. Depending on how much raw compute you burn through, you can earn titles like Cash Wizard.
Cash Wizard.
Or Model Connoisseur.
Yeah.
But the ultimate top-tier rank is Token Legend.
Token Legend.
Yeah.
And the highest-ranking user on this leaderboard, the Ultimate Token Legend, averaged 281 billion tokens in a single 30-day window.
One single user.
This behavior has spawned this bizarre new trend across Silicon Valley known as token maxing.
Yeah, token maxing is out of control.
Explain the mechanics of how an employee actually achieves that. Because no single human is manually typing out enough prompts to generate 281 billion tokens in a month.
Oh, they don't type it out. They automate the waste.
Automate the waste.
Token maxing is the practice of leaving AI agents running autonomously for hours or even days on end. They have them perform highly redundant, complex, or honestly just pointless tasks solely to pad the employee's numbers on the leaderboard.
That is absurd.
And it gets worse when you factor in what they call reasoning tokens.
What are reasoning tokens?
So, newer AI models are designed to essentially talk to themselves to puzzle through a problem before they actually give the user an answer.
Oh, right. So they show their work, basically.
Exactly. So an employee can set an AI to solve a complex puzzle, and the AI burns millions of tokens just debating with itself, and the employee's leaderboard rank shoots straight up.
Regardless of whether the final answer actually helped the company do anything valuable.
Precisely.
The crazy part to me is that this isn't just a grassroots phenomenon of bored engineers playing games. It is actively being driven from the top down.
Oh, yeah. Leadership loves this.
Right. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang recently went on record stating that he would be deeply alarmed if an engineer making $500,000 a year wasn't consuming at least $250,000 worth of compute tokens.
And you also have Meta's CTO, Andrew Bosworth, supposedly bragging that one of his top engineers spends the equivalent of his entire salary on tokens, claiming it increased his output by 10x.
Okay, I have to call a timeout on this corporate logic. This is like judging a delivery driver by how much gas they waste instead of how many packages they deliver.
That is a great way to put it.
Or tracking a writer's productivity by how many ink cartridges they empty into the trash. It just proves the engine is on, not that you're going anywhere.
Exactly. The fundamental flaw in this metric is mistaking activity for value. Every one of those 60 trillion tokens represents a hard financial cost to Meta.
Has anybody actually proved that this works?
No. Nobody has produced hard data proving that burning all these tokens translates directly to real business revenue.
So they're just guessing.
For AI companies, finding the connection between raw usage and actual profit generation is the single most critical challenge they face right now. I mean, they desperately have to justify the billions of dollars and the gigawatts of power they are pouring into this infrastructure.
It feels like a massive bubble of self-validation. And we've seen this tactic before. Google used to routinely report raw token consumption in its cloud offerings during quarterly earnings calls.
Just to show Wall Street investors that people were theoretically adopting the technology.
Right. Showing raw usage numbers looks stratospheric on a slide deck, but the actual value delivered to the human user might be entirely marginal.
Exactly. If a developer uses 1 million tokens to generate a piece of code that doesn't actually work, the leaderboard still calls them a cash wizard, but the company just lost money.
Totally backwards.
Relying on consumption as a proxy for productivity is a strategy that simply won't survive long-term investor scrutiny.
Before we wrap up, a quick thanks to Old Glory, an iconic music and sports fan merch store, perfect for the techie in your life. Use promo code SNARFL for 15% off at oldglory.com.
So to bring these two massive shifts into focus for you, we are watching a fascinating dichotomy unfold in real time right now.
It really is a tale of two extremes.
Right. On the hardware and infrastructure side, companies like Anthropic, Broadcom, and Google are engaging in an incredibly serious multi-billion-dollar arms race.
You're doing the heavy lifting.
They are successfully building the biggest, most resilient, most power-hungry AI supercomputers in human history. They are literally redrawing the map of American energy consumption to ensure global supply chains don't collapse.
Yet when that unimaginable city-level power trickles down to the actual office workers, corporate management hasn't quite figured out what to do with it yet.
Not at all.
We are currently just turning it into a ridiculous video game of who can burn the most digital fuel at companies like Meta. It is a profound mismatch between the raw capability of the tool and the immaturity of the metrics we use to measure its actual impact.
We have successfully built the fastest, most expensive race car in the world, but we are still arguing over how to measure who is actually winning the race.
Which leaves us with a pretty mind-bending question for you to ponder on your commute or while you're grabbing your coffee today.
Oh, I like this one.
Think about the mechanics of token maxing for a second. If corporate America firmly decides that AI token usage, basically how much compute you can waste, is the ultimate metric for how valuable you are as an employee.
Right.
What happens when these AI models inevitably become drastically more efficient?
Because as the software naturally improves and optimizes, it will require significantly fewer tokens to accomplish the exact same task.
Exactly. Will workers suddenly be penalized or look less productive during their performance reviews simply because the AI learned how to do the exact same job using half the computing power?
Yeah. It creates the ultimate efficiency paradox. If your professional worth is tied to your digital waste, true innovation might actually cost you your title as a token legend.
We're here to help at Snarful, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarful.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.